Hey everyone, and welcome to An Operator's Blog. In this episode, we will be discussing some really hard fought learnings and lessons from doing US go to market as an India based startup. Joining me today is a very dear friend of mine, Prashant Mahajan. Prashant is a very experienced founder and product leader. His most recent adventure was as the founder of Zeda, a venture backed startup in the AI powered product management tool space. Prior to this, Prashant has been a product leader in top companies like Branch, Tokopedia, and Paytm. And I think the most interesting thing is that over the last few years, I've really seen Prashant's journey of starting up in India, raising venture capital there, getting early adopters, moving to the US physically as a founder, and really doing another 0 to 1 of driving US go to market. And there's a lot of insights to unpack from there. As Prashant is wrapping up the Zeda chapter, I think this is the right time to pick Prashant's brains. So Prashant, it's so good to have you.
Thanks a lot, Samita. I think this has been one of the first podcasts which I'm doing after winding up Veda. So everything is still fresh and it will be a huge, at least people will avoid doing my mistakes. So that's the idea. I wanted to get on it and share with it because I meet a lot of founders in their USA journey. And I just want them to be careful of mistakes I did so they don't do it. But thanks a lot for having me on the show. I've been watching all the podcast and watching your blog. So super helpful.
Yes, and I think Prashant and my promise is that this we are going to keep it very, very brass tacks. So nothing is out of bounds, and we're going to keep it really, really operating and really, really practical, both personally and professionally for US India founders. So Prashant, first thing, how are you feeling? A big chapter is ending. First reactions, thoughts. What's your mental space like? Just talk to us.
I think uh, when this happens to you, you never think of it. No, you ever want it every day. You have been dreaming and living that this is going to be your life now. Or at least uh, in my case, if you see, you search Prashant Mahajan, Veda.io comes up, Veda.io searches Prashant comes up. For last 5 years, everyone has associated me and Veda together. So it becomes part of your identity, personality. And when that dies down or shuts off or whatever, it's like a piece of you is gone. So now, how do you identify yourself? You're no longer CEO. So that's first thing. And second thing is there's a grief and relief. When you when you say grief, obviously it's your baby that uh, gone now. But there's a relief because eventually you knew that is coming. It's like very few startups shut down immediately. So for last 4 5 months, I knew what is gonna happen, and I have been telling the team, helping them out, customers, investors, multiple M&A discussions. Uh, so now that it's done, you also feel a relief. But one thing which happens after immediately once you do is you have that imposter syndrome again, and you feel like you don't know anything because all you knew was Veda and or your startup. Now that's not there. You are not a pure play product manager. You are not pure play marketer. You are not a salesperson. You are not an HR. So you are just figuring out your way out now.
Yeah, I remember I recently read your LinkedIn post where you said that it seems to be easier to build products and startups than clearing one of these, big tech company interviews. And I found that very, very, very insightful. It kind of captures so beautifully the journey and the predicaments of being a founder, and what you do if you the only thing at least for the last few years, to build a startup.
Yeah. So I really think uh, whenever people talk to me, I'm like, oh yeah, how I'll build the startup again. But when you ask me how do I crack a interview at a FANG, I'm like, oh, I can't do it. So that's the situation.
Cool. And I'll come back to kind of the present, and I think I'm actually very excited for, I'm sure, what are going to be very, very awesome adventures for you going forward. But just going back in time, and I remember I think we kind of connected a few years back. You of course started Zeta in India. You got some really, really solid kind of early adopter traction. You raised a venture round in India. what was that point in time in this life cycle in the company back when you were in India where you thought that, look, I have to move to the US now physically as a founder, and this whole kind of remote is not going to work, or India B2B is
Hmm.
not going to work. Like, talk to us about those exact kind of milestones.
So when we started, uh, it was pandemic, like 2020 and 2021 early. So it was still not physically possible to travel. And we didn't know also back then the US market. w- I had worked in USA. I had been for a year with branch.io, which is a SaaS company. But the scope of the US market, we were not able to comprehend. So when we raised funding, we were like, okay, we have to shift to USA. But you there's no trigger point for it initially because you are focused on building. For us, that trigger point happened. Uh, so we had that I have to shift to USA. That was very clear from day one. But when was not clear. So as soon as we got our funding, I started my visa process, uh, O1 visa, but there was no rush for it. I think there were two main trigger points which caused the rush. One was definitely after initial few customers, we realized that no one knows us. Like the US companies where the product management, like our product is for product managers where mm, Bay Area is the first to adopt, Bay Area is the first to come up with practices. The top product people, leaders, PMs are here. I'm not saying other people are not good. I'm just saying that density is here. Uh, so being in India, we were not getting that exposure. People did not know our brand. People did not know us. If we are cold messaging or emailing them, they are ignoring us out. So, and when we even get a lead, product board or other competition who are local, they were getting the traction. So, how do we get to the market? How do we get it? And the brand was unknown. So, how do you build a brand in the mind of top people? uh, or the early adopters. And the second trigger point was I I think after pandemic, I first time went to USA during July, August of 2022. And then I realized that I'm doing a terrible mistake by being there longer. I need to shift ASAP. Because I could see people are building here. I could talk to people directly. I could see the enthusiasm here versus there, at least for our product. Uh, in India, it was still about project management. Here, it was product management. So I was like, okay, let's just pack our bags and shift there. And as soon as the visa and everything got sorted, 6 months later, I shifted to USA.
Yeah, and this is brings up such an important point, right? I mean, as investors and in the ecosystem in general, you get this advice, especially when you're starting up in India, you're in the cross-border SaaS space, that, oh, go to the US as early as possible, go on day zero, right? Like, sit with the customers. But the reality as a founder is that there are so many constraints in your life, right? There's a capital constraint. There is, you have built an early team. Does the team have a remote culture? What's that right point, right? I mean, it's actually not a very straightforward call of saying, hey, let me just, like, whatever, just go to the US.
And I think one thing which I have been observing with a lot of people do India USA travel, but I realized that it's very hard. When I say hard, uh, for cost saving, you have to try to figure out which is the cheapest Airbnb, where will I eat, how will I commute, and then uh, what is going to be the work situation, how I'm gonna do calls, and then you're traveling to multiple cities and meetings. So you are not able to get that focus zone
Hmm.
where you can just do one thing very good. And now imagine what you just said that initially everyone is saying that go fit where customer is, but you have to do hiring call here. You have to do collaboration call in India. And then you're trying to figure, okay, where do I eat? Where do I stay? How long this Airbnb is? How do I check out luggage? So your 20 to 30% mindset is taken by all these things. As a stage where you have to build a company, product, culture, you are spending 30% of your mental bandwidth doing all these things. So it's just very inefficient.
Yeah, and maybe for, let's say, a very, very young founder out of college who has no baggage, You can come here, whatever, take a Airbnb, two, three people, start hacking stuff, but then you don't have kind of support back in India. I think in your case, you had built a team. I think you had that early adoption. There was some base that you could
Yes.
use to kind of springboard into the US market. And then, literally the first 3 months as you landed here, right? What were some of the operating challenges that really like straight up hit you in the face that you were never expecting or not prepared for? I think you spoke something about Airbnb and food and all
Yeah.
that, but talk to us about those things.
I think as soon as you land, you everything in India is sorted for you. You know people who know people kind of situation. Uh, Here I remember reaching out to someone, can I crash your place? And then I was trying to do all the logistical stuff of getting a social security number, getting a driving license, and getting that phone number because to get a bank account, to get a, you need all these three things, and then getting a house. Well, those are hard part. I'll say two, three things which stood out for me was just the compliance part of building a company. For example, most companies in India are registered in Delaware, right? Because Stripe Atlas or whoever you're using, they're going to register in Delaware. But if you're in California and you cannot get employed in California, unlike India, where one central registration with MCA makes you can work anywhere in India. You don't have to do state-wise uh, compliance. In USA, you have to register entity in California and then take care of San Francisco also. So that was a big eye opener and kind of we thought okay we'll use a employer of record, we'll continue. But my visa was sponsored by Zeda Tech. I cannot use an employer of record. You have to have Zeda Tech as an entity here if you're going to be here. So that was a time waste, money waste, uh, took so much of effort for me. That was one. Second thing which I can eye opener in first 3 months from operating perspective was people don't know you. Like in Bangalore, I can say not boastfully, but at least I knew a lot of product committee. And because, like you said, we raised funding, so VCs also knew we had talked to. So it was there. When I landed here, you are nothing. Like you might think you are very important in your world, in your network, but everyone here is so successful, so uh, driven that you are basically starting from zero. You go and say, I'm doing this, okay, then people are not interested. So, how do you build a brand? How do you get people to talk to you? Because your goal is to get meetings, leads, all those things. But people don't have time for you. So, how do you get that? That becomes another challenge. Um, and probably third is loneliness factor. You shifted here, and uh, for me, I was in a relationship, so it's not like you are going to start a life again here. So how do you? I did not study masters here. I did not. I worked here for 1 year for branch folks I knew. Uh, but beyond that, you don't know anyone. So how do you make your day-to-day work here? So that's very challenging to live.
Yeah, and the third point is so important. In fact, just earlier today in the morning, I was talking to another US India operator. So he works for a US based startup, but kind of started in Bangalore, then moved here, actually did his undergrad here in Berkeley,
Got it.
and now is living in New York. But even he was mentioning the same thing. He's like, look, it's so hard because for the last few years, all his entire center of gravity of his life was in Bangalore. And
Yeah.
now to come into New York, how do you plug in into a new community? How do you make friends? How do you, and I mean, these, as a founder, in general, your life and every day is so tough at so many levels that, having your personal kind of energy sorted is so important from a mental health perspective.
Yeah. That's not, you know, the whole fancy words of grit, perseverance, uh, founder mode, all those try to push you that take out that human empathy or mental health outside. That, oh, you don't need any work-life balance. Why do you need to talk to people? Go work on your laptop and build a company. But that's not how it works.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or at least that's not sustainable. Yeah, you can do it for whatever a 2 3 month YC program or some sort of an accelerator sprint, but yeah, it doesn't work sustainably. So like roughly, let's say if day zero was the day a founder like yourself from India lands in the US, roughly how many months do you think it takes before you actually truly become productive? Like you have your ecosystem set up and you can actually, 80-90% of your day then is going into actually building out the company instead of dealing with all this stuff.
Usually 3 months.
Three
Easy.
months. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Also, I think depends on the what life stage you are on. Like
Hmm.
you can do Wi-Fi kind of thing, but if you feel 90% of Wi-Fi or 80% of Wi-Fi is young folks in 20 to 25
Right. Yeah,
bracket,
correct.
at that time you are having that energy to meet more people, social, and
Yeah,
you're just out of college and you have that college momentum going on for you.
yeah.
When you're in 30s, that won't fit well.
Totally. And going to early customer acquisition, right? So let's say, you got settled, you started kind of executing, and again, of course, you had a lot of relationships, you had a brand, you had a VC backing you in India. You already, I still remember, I think you had some 30, 40 really good kind of solid customers, early adopters in India. What about the US? How did you go about acquiring those early customers? And were there any specific channels? And this for the benefit of other US India founders, right? Like as you start going into the US for those really first, those innovator, early adopter type 5 to 10 customers, what are some things that worked for you?
Us, it was unique because we were building a product for product team. A lot of Indian companies which are shifting, they do GTM part, like sell to GTM team. We were selling to product team. So being very active in the community was the biggest thing. I think as soon as I landed, I opened, got a LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Put a filter, my college, product manager, all the people who ever are in the Bay Area, send a request message. Hey, I'm from this college. I shifted it here. Can I talk? Then my hometown, Amritsar and Bay Area, like product manager, whoever is here. Oh, I see you are from Amritsar. Good to see you. Let's talk. And then any investor, I was like, hey, can you make an intro? Investors made intro. Uh, like I said, I didn't do masters here, but I will find out any common, which I could find between people. Then I started hanging out in Lenny's community. So if you see, I'm part of almost all the community because just pinging people. And then being a bit genuine as well as persistent, where you are reaching out. I remember when we were meeting, I met at you on the Richmond area, and I had to come all the way from Palo Alto, and I was like, but you have to do it. You take out that effort to book 4 5 meetings in an area, and then ping people. And I used to do a lot of this thing that, hey, I'm going to be in San Francisco, Samita. Do you have time? Even though I'm not going to be there, but once you get one meeting, then you ping 5 people more. Hey, I'm going to be in this state on this, so you club it all the meetings, and my day to night will go that way. Um, and then partnership with other product leaders. Like we probably partnered with almost all product leaders who are known. Uh, so we'll partner on mutual growth. Like we promote them, they promote us. Paid partnership, any promotional partnership. So these, I think, community and influencer-led partnership worked for us. What did not work for us was we did all the sponsorship to all the conference, zero result, except Product Leader Summit one. But again, only one conference, but rest all did not work. We did outbound, Apollo, LinkedIn, didn't work. No one replies to the cold email. I think that's a dead channel. We were getting SEO traffic, and I think that's one thing which started shifting organically because we started working with USA communities, USA influencers, and content published here that our SEO started shifting. Earlier, SEO was 70% India, 20% USA, and 10% others. Now, if I check, it is 70% USA, 20% India, 2025, and 5-10% rest. So that shift happened organically. Uh, Other channels like paid ads, we never worked for us.
Got it. And then as you were kind of, pitching the product to these people and you started getting kind of that early feedback and maybe even early users and then eventually customers, because the product was already kind of in motion in India, right? It was not kind of an MVP. There was already a roadmap, I'm sure.
Yeah.
How did the product roadmap evolve post it hitting the US market from a feedback perspective? What stayed the same, or what changed, or what evolved in your thinking from a product perspective?
I think in my case, my story is a bit unique because as soon as I landed here and we started doing things, ChatGPT came out. So uh, I earlier proposition was that we'll build a platform, we'll build, get data uh, around it, and then we'll build a AI copilot for product team, just like GitHub did it. Build a platform, get users, get content, train model, and then. But as soon as ChatGPT came out, uh, the roadmap got shifted a lot because of AI. But I do feel when I was talking to my co-founder and my team in India, I could see the lag, like things which are happening here, and you could, when things are happening in around you, you can extrapolate faster, and you can see people talking about it, doing things, and you are able to see where the industry is going. I think in India, that's a missed opportunity where still most people are not active on Twitter. There's a very small subset, uh, and I'm talking about from a tech perspective, tech community perspective. Even most of the founders who come here are not active. So there's a very small community which is active. Most are active on LinkedIn because we were exposed to LinkedIn first. Uh, but when you see the shift here, that people are what they're talking, what they're doing, you realize that, oh, the direction you are going is already incorrect. So pivoting that in our case from platform to AI first was the key. And the second thing, I also feel, I don't think most people say that the UX here need to be top notch. Whenever I showed, we actually got positive feedback that your UX actually looks very mature and polished. So I think you can be in India and still build a great UX and UI. Uh, that is not the case. Uh, in terms of branding, for sure. So completely changed the narrative that we are not an India first company or India based company. We are a USA company with engineering team in India because we realized that uh, if you say here that you are a USA company or YC startup or whatever, and your entire customer base is Indian, your entire team is Indian, your entire marketing and website copy and everything is Indian, you realize that you are not American first or America based till you truly embody it. So we had to change our website, we had to change our LinkedIn marketing, our case studies, our uh, content around that uh, to cater towards US market. And I think finally one more point which I can remember in retrospect where you said that how is it different? I think here security and compliance and that procurement cycle is very, I'll say mature because literally there have been instances where I have been in touch with an Indian company and I'm trying to explain the logic and they are negotiating for less than $50, $100. And I was like, that's not my problem, just take it. But here you have to be USOC to compliant, HIPAA compliant, and then what does your onboarding process look like? That's very smoother now, which I think we learned after coming here.
And then Prashant, one of the things, again, I mean, moving from India to the US, it's a big time commitment, it's a big cost. Um Most pre-seed seed startups have finite resources. Then there's all these changes of localization that's happening. So it's a very high kind of effort thing, right? So you got to come in with specific goals in mind. Were there any specific things that, or goals or PMF metrics that you had in mind, where you said that, look, this is what I'm going to gun for because I'm here. I'm kind of making this very drastic step of uprooting my entire life. And we have to hit this for me to say that this move is actually working as a founder, right?
Yeah, we measured it in two ways. Three actually, you can say three, but combined together. One is Number of customers. So I had a goal that 5 customers in 6 months.
Hmm.
That was the, I think we closed in 4, 5 months, but number of customers I'm gonna close in USA uh, after I land here. Second was definitely uh, ACV. So ACV actually went higher partly due to we shifting to AI first, and partly because of US customer. And third was leads. So leads, conversion, and the revenue. These three metrics we were observing, uh, and we put a timeline that okay, first 3 months nothing will happen, next 3 months and next 3 months. So um, if that would not have been increasing, I would have gone back. But for us, that was the key metric that okay, are we seeing the shift in our leads from India first to USA first? Majority. Are we seeing the ACV increase? Are we seeing the conversion rate increase? And then at one point, we actually stopped uh, a lot of efforts in the Indian community altogether.
Got it. And did you end up building out a team here as well in the US, or was most of the team in India and then you were the only person here?
Was uh, here, and then we hired 2 people, one intern, sales intern, and one salesperson uh, to lead everything. It was he was a great. He was based in San Diego. Really awesome guy.
Got it. Got it. I want to come to the kind of the tougher part of the journey now and kind of coming closer to the present day, right? So, what were the breaking points in this journey that you realized in the last few months where you said that, look, things are probably not unfolding as per the goals that you had set out? Was it runway? Was it customer traction? Was it operating issues? Yeah.
It's never one thing,
Yeah.
but uh, mainly my I think looking back, building a product management focused only company as a venture scale outcome was not a good decision. So that's what I shared in the LinkedIn post, and I tried to tell everyone that it's a very good product. Like I have talked to 20 competitors. I had 4 calls yesterday. I had few last week where people who have been competition to us have reached out learning that why did I, because we were doing good. We were good. So why did I shut down? And while there are certain internal reasons, the major part was it would have gotten stuck at 4 or 5 million ARR, where which is that death valley where you're surviving. We could have survived. We had money. We could have survived way longer, 2, 3 years more, without even external fundraise, and we could have made it profitable, bootstrap. Was that a venture scale outcome? Is the question. And I think when you're starting a company, we don't think about venture scale initially, at least. At least I have. I was like I told you, I was at Fast Food event. I talked to a few more companies since last 2, 3 weeks, and I get that whenever I touch upon it, I realize that it's missing, which is how do you, so in USA, for example, currently to go public, you need 300, 400 million ARR. So forget you not being able to go public, and if your goal is to build a company and get a exit, even then you need a decent 100, 200 million exit. First of all, 100, 200 million exits are very rare. It's not like every day happening. But for example, this is one thing I would touch upon. This is a bit deviation from the original question, but very important for India US founder. A lot of people have asked me and said that you have a team in India, it will get, you sell it to some bigger company. And we talked, we had like 10 M&A discussions fall apart because our engineering team was in India. Now, no one thinks about it when you are starting up, but if your entire engineering team is in India, only big tech companies first of all, the narrative that people like to have a cheap dev shop in India is over. That's not the case. So the people want in-person working team where they can work with and not remote collaboration. Only big tech companies like Microsoft, Amazon, which are very big, and they are requiring for operational efficiency, they build a team in India. I cannot take names, but you can imagine top 10 companies which are in the product management space. We talked to them. They were like, oh, if your team was in Bay Area, we would have done it. If your team was, and other companies which were in Europe, they're like, the navigation, Indian laws, compliance, we do not want to disrupt our current roadmap and focus on taking care of that. So we are not going to acquire. So, and also the laws are not very, immigration laws are not very favorable that you will give option to your engineers to shift to USA or something like that. So anyway, I was just touching on that as a separate note that why even 100, 200 million M&A, if you're thinking, might not happen because if you build your entire team in India. So if you reach 100, 200 million, maybe that's good, but I'm just saying. So current ARR is at 5 to 8x of your revenue, right? So in order to get a 100 million exit, we need to be at 10, 15 million ARR minimum, growing at 20%. Now, when you do all those calculation and take your ACV and take all other competitions, none of them is doing 10 million. No company in product like in our space was doing 10 million except product board, but that has been declining and they have been stagnant for a while. No other company is doing that. So imagine how hard it is. And this is where I started to see the sign of struggle. And I wanted to make sure that if I'm not going to deliver the venture expectation, it's better to start something which could be venture scale, or mm, at least not waste your team's time, give false hope to investors, and waste it.
And then, did you consider any kind of any sorts of pivots, even into adjacent areas? And with AI now, there are a lot of new opportunities, new verticals, new categories opening up. And I mean, Zeta is kind of had been at the forefront in the product management space. So there's a lot of institutional knowledge, I'm sure, even within your head and in the company's head. Was that ever an option?
So we did evaluate in product management phase, and actually we pivoted from platform to AI. We were the first to do it. So that was definitely there. But from PM to other space, we thought a lot about it, we saw it. But there are multiple things to be taken into consideration. One was, and again, there are things which cannot be shared on the podcast, but there are internal reasons within the team, investors, co-founder, where you need to get conviction as well as support. And the second thing is, uh, when you're pivoting, you need to get a hard evidence. Like if you're just going to try from one idea to other idea, I think that's a waste of investors' money. Like then you are just taking money to just experiment your way out. But we could not find any hard signal in our data or industry that if not this, then what else is working? Because we were seeing every product management startup which came out in YC, Europe, India, what they are doing. Is there any new angle? Is there any growth angle? Is there something which is getting big? But in this category, we couldn't see. In other categories, yes. But like I said, then you are going to start a new company from scratch in that case. Like your branding need to change, your everything need to change. And I think in that case, uh, one, was it something I wanted to build a company to solve the customer this problem, this persona, this pain point. Something else which I have not conviction about, which I don't have a passion about, just to stay as a founder. That oh, I'm a founder, I want to continue. I didn't wanted to do that thing, uh, both from my perspective and my team investors perspective. So I thought it's better to take this to, again, in retrospect, this could be a wrong decision, but uh, I told one of my investors who asked me to keep the money and keep on ideating. I was like, I'll just return this money, take some time, think about it, and start again. If in that time you feel that that idea is good, you will reinvest it. So let's keep that relationship rather than me having that pressure that I have to figure out something in 6 months.
Yeah, totally. I mean, this is all so valuable. I mean, nobody talks about, these things. These are the behind the scenes that happen in most startups. I mean, it's most startups fail. That's the reality of our ecosystem.
I think mostly uh, I can tell you most it's about keeping a good image. You know, if you don't keep that good image, you might lose investment, you might lose confidence of your team, you might lose confidence of your investors. You have built that strong go get a founder image, and now if you tell that, oh, you don't know something, everything can go away. And it does in some cases.
Yeah. No, I think my kind of learnings and 2 cents on this has been, I think one, I think the most important thing for all of us as founders, as investors, is time. And the
Yeah,
moment the founder kind of gets evidence and enough information that the founder's view on the market changes or something happens that they lose conviction, that's kind of the time to cut your losses, because everyone wants to move on, and this is everyone signs up for this being a very high risk, high failure rate game. So you need to conserve time to be able to try out and give more shots at the goal. And second is, I think, intellectual honesty. I think I'm glad that you kind of took that view on pivots as well, because I think those incremental pivots are the worst, right? So it has to be a hard pivot, but then the hard pivot also has to be, it can't be just for the heck of it. It has to be backed by a very intellectually honest view of why are we going in this direction. And typically, in my experience, those pivots they come out very organically.
exactly. You are able to see some data, some signal, because of which you are like, yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. No, of course, a few things did not work, but I think a lot of things worked for Zeta as well in this journey. What are the top three things that you really feel worked well, and which I think other kind of US India founders listening to this can take away from as playbooks, as insights, learnings, approaches, anything personal, professional, anything.
I think community and brand it really did because trust me, if you see the LinkedIn post, it has 100,000 impressions, and I have been getting so many messages where people have been like, we never thought Veda will go out. Like they're like, we have been following your journey for 4 years, 5 years, and since the day you started and ping on LinkedIn, etc. Because like I said, I had been talking to community a lot. They're like, did not expect this, but people who have not even worked, not even invested, just they had been silent observers. They ping. And recently, I was applying to a job, and someone was like, uh, and I pinged someone for referral, and he was like, sure, man, I'll refer you. By the way, I have been following your journey for 4 years, and sorry to hear with Seda, but you did it great. So that's a very reassuring feeling where uh, people who have no incentive, they found it. And we were able to really work with probably top people in the product management community. If you see any I I couldn't imagine myself to be sharing a stage with Marty Kagan. We partnered with him. We partnered with Dan Olson. We partnered with Shivi, Merrily, Mikdad, like Ka- Kylo from product school. He always has been supportive. Like these people, I think, were really helpful. Other thing which played part was team. I think yes, we had hiring mistakes. We m- missed out certain places, but there were few hires who till the end were there. Like, they did not leave the company till we asked them to leave the company. So that was very powerful. And even I think when we decided to end the chapter and we gave severance for them to figure out, and we were following regularly, did you get a job? Do you need any help? And for at least 3 months, we kept 2, 3 months, we kept on getting, we are waiting for you to start again. And we're like, dude, we are not starting again. Just find a job. So I think that was very powerful, where we could rely on people with admin access, everything for team played very well. Third was definitely like product works. Like the problem we intended to solve currently also works. If someone signs up and try out Veda, and it might be outdated because we haven't updated anything in 3 months, but the premise of the problem that hey, We will help you listen to customers on scale, convert them into Jira tickets, and track the progress. Works. It's just that was it a venture scale or not is a separate question. But the problem and the premise fit well, and that works.
No, I think, what I'm kind of taking away from your journey is the importance of relationships, right? Relationships with customers, with your team, right? I mean, people kind of literally being there, until the kind of end of the road. Um, as a lot of other US India founders, right, they face similar challenges that the most critical, I think, superpower that especially an overseas cross-border founder needs to have is relationship building, right? As you go into a new market, how do you build new connections, new relationships with customers, prospective investors, prospective hires, partners, right? I mean, that's kind of the core skill. And my observation has been that it doesn't come naturally to a lot of people, especially from India, right? I mean, we are taught to be very good engineers and very good technically and quantitatively, right? But a lot of the softer elements, EQ elements, cultural elements are very different here in this country. What are some of the things, takeaways that you can kind of share, that people can do, and kind of more very tactically, right? What are some of the things that they can do to kind of really get better at this as they come here?
I think don't try to get out something out of every conversation. That's the first thing. Like you are not someone is giving you time that's more than something you can get out of someone. Like time is probably one of the most valuable things. Don't try to get more uh, out of it unless and until they want it. Because if you are not able to show the value in the that time, it's just trying to you become pesky. I don't know. So that's being careful and mindful of other person's time. That is one. Second is uh, open to the culture nuances. I still feel, or at least, again, I'm not trying to generalize, but this is my observation. If you're coming to USA and you're still asking someone to meet for dinner and you're going for Indian restaurant, like you, those kind of very small things that open up more, try to be more open about things. And if you're coming to USA and you're trying to build a global company, that's why you're coming to USA, right? There's no India USA corridor. It's just that your tech team is in India and you're building your buyers are in USA. But eventually you're building a global company. Try to hang out with more global people. Like, don't be in that small community, staying in Fremont, staying in Sunnyvale, staying in that narrow community where you are not able to get exposure to other people. Most Indian folk who come here, they work in tech. When I say tech, engineering, product design, whatever it could be, but building part. A lot of startups which are coming up in India, mostly SaaS startups, they target GTM teams, revenue teams, which are non-Indians now. So now, if you're going to stay in the culture of this one section and trying to sell to other section, there's always going to be a gap. So just be careful about it. Uh, and finally, avoid politics at all cost. Uh, you never know who's leaning towards what side. Focus on the work and not on other things.
This is very, very practical advice, right? So I think political correctness sometimes stands in the way of kind of true knowledge sharing, which can help people. And so I really appreciate this. And then final question, obviously before we let you go, what next? What are you leaning towards? What is exciting you? Any thoughts on what's happening in AI now that you are unburdened from,
As
well, being a founder, you're a free agent now.
there's a lot of exciting things happening, but there's a this. Remember, I told you initially there's this caveat that your visa, which is O1 visa, is tied to your company. If you are shutting it down, you need to get O1 sponsorship again. Now you can get start your own company and get an O1 visa again, but you need to run payroll for that. And it comes with a cost, like I said, California and all those costs. So you need to get funding. So now to get funding, you need to have a solid idea, etc. So all those things I'm keeping on hold for now. Uh, Also because I want to take some time off to work on something hands-on at scale. Uh, and then probably after a few years, you'll see me back into 0 to 1 journey, and that will be there.
Absolutely. We are rooting for you. And then for anyone, any company executive, any founder of a scaled company listening to this episode, Prashant is on the market. So feel free to ping him on LinkedIn. I think he's going to be a very, very valuable addition to any team. Thank you. I think especially I think from the bottom of my heart for being vulnerable. These are kind of not easy things to talk about. I know it's still fresh as you are kind of wrapping up this chapter, but I think this is very, very valuable information and very set of insights that you would normally not get or people would not tell you, right? Especially on social media or on a podcast, right? So this is I think going to be incredibly helpful.
I'm hopeful that it will help people. But thanks a lot for having me on the show. And I think just that focus of India USA corridor which you are doing is amazing, because I wish you started it 5 years back when I was moving. Would have been much more helpful to me. But I think it's a good thing that you and other people are doing.